Hi Ennis class, I hope you are all well. Today we are going to be continuing our Humanities lesson and we are looking at the beaker culture today. So on the next slide I will show you exactly what you need to have ready for your lesson. You will need a piece of paper, a pencil and lots of concentration. So pause the video here while you go and get those things. Okay, now that you're ready, our learning intention today is I know what the beaker culture was. So if you can write that down at the top of your paper, you can pause the video if you need a bit of time to copy it down. And by the end of the lesson, we are going to understand what a beaker is. You are going to be writing a letter based on your knowledge, and you're going to know that the beaker culture was in the Bronze Age. So first things first, if you don't have a purple pen, that's absolutely fine. You can just write in whichever pen or pencil you have. You need to answer these three questions. When was the Bronze Age? How was bronze made? And you're going to list an item that is made from bronze. You can use the picture there to help you to write down some ideas. So pause the video here while you go through and answer those questions. Okay, well done. I hope you found that really good. So I know some of you might not remember the exact dates, and that is absolutely fine. So these are the answers to the recap. If you have got it correct, well done. If you need to correct it, just write it in. Do not worry if you've got the date slightly wrong, because normally we would have our books and you would be able to look in your books to get the date. So that's absolutely fine. So the Bronze Age was from 3000 BC to 1200 BC. Bronze was made by combining tin and copper, and the Bronze Age items you could have were axes, swords, knives, daggers and spearheads. Some of you may have a few other things that you've added in, but that is absolutely fine. So well done. This was just to recap our previous lesson. So now, going on to today's lesson, I want you to write down the answer to this question. What do you think a beaker is? Now, there's some pictures there for you to give you a bit of a clue. Write down for me what you think a beaker is, and it will be really good if you could possibly write on our Google Classroom stream the answer to that question, and I can see it to see if you've got it correct or not. Okay, so here is our answer to what a beaker is. So a beaker is a drinking container. It is a container with a flat bottom that holds liquids. In today's society, a beaker is a drinking cup mainly used by children. So obviously the beaker from the Bronze Age, as you can see from the picture, is very different to the beaker that we have today, and the beakers that you might be used to seeing in your homes if you have younger brothers or sisters, or if you remember drinking from them yourself. So I would like you, please, just to make some notes from the screen. Now remember, when we make notes, we're just focusing on the key information. So you might decide you want to just write down that the beaker is a drinking container. Someone else might decide that they want the information describing it, saying that it has a flat bottom and that it holds liquids. So you can choose. I would like you to write down as many notes as you would like to. You can pause the video here and take as much time as you need. The more information you have, the better it's going to be, because at the end of the lesson we're going to do a nice task and you need to use the notes you've made to help you. So pause the video here and you can make your notes and make them very clear so that you can look back on them and read it and understand what I have been talking about. Okay, so we're going to look at Beaker Folk now. So Bronze Age people were also known as Beaker Folk or Beaker people. You can see there's a picture there of 4 people, and that is what an artist impression is of what they thought that the Beaker people looked like. So you can see they're wearing fur because obviously it was very cold during that time, and they are looking very similar to what we look like now, but obviously they didn't have proper clothes and they obviously didn't have the materials that we have now. So the Beaker people received their name from their distinctive bell-shaped beakers that they made. You can see a picture at the top there. And these beakers were shaped and decorated using horizontal lines by finely toothed stamps. So if you see horizontal, remember it goes along. So horizontal lines go along. And you can see that that is the design that the beakers have on them. Their culture is often called the bell beaker culture, okay, because of the beaker being shaped like a bell. So if you actually turn the beaker upside down, it probably would look like a bell. The bell beaker folk readily mixed with any new culture that they encountered. So they were really friendly people and they got on really well. So again, I want you to make as many notes as you can about this information, and you can pause the video here before you go on to the next slide. So we're going to continue learning about the Beaker folk now on this slide. Again, just make notes of the key information that you think is most important. You do not need to write everything down, just enough so that you understand a little bit more about the Beaker folk. So the Beaker folk were new arrivals in Britain around 2100 BC. They are believed to have travelled from Spain or Portugal across Europe in search of metal. Now, if you think about that time, they didn't have cars, they didn't have aeroplanes, so they would have had to travel for many, many days walking on probably barefoot or very thin shoes in order to get to these countries across Europe. So they obviously are very brave, very strong people and have very good survival instincts as well. They settled well with the people living in Britain, but they caused a huge change in the culture. They made distinctive bell-shaped pottery, which were not only used for drinking from, but they were also used as urns or to smelt copper or to store food. So they would also be used for other things other than drinking. Okay, these beakers. So they were actually something that the people could use for many different reasons. And so these beakers became part of the culture of Britain during the Bronze Age. Many people would have numerous beakers in their houses. The pottery was decorated with bands that contained impressions made by pressing a comb or cord into the clay. This pottery would show someone's wealth. So depending on how many beakers or potteries or pots you had, that was how rich or how wealthy you were. Okay, so if you had lots and lots of beakers, that meant you were a very rich person. And they made the designs using combs which were pressed down when the material was still wet. While it was wet, they made the design, and then when it cooled and dried, the imprint would stay, and that would be the pattern on the beaker. Okay, so make as many notes as you need to. I would say the key things to take from this slide is when they arrived in Britain, that they made an impact and they got on well with the people of Britain, and maybe why the beaker was so useful to the people living in Britain during the Bronze Age, all the different things they used the beakers for. Okay, so pause the video here if you need to before going on to the next slide. Okay, what do you notice about these beakers? I want you to think about the patterns. I want you to think about the shape. What do you think they might have been used for? Okay, so I want you to write down 3 different sentences. Number 1, what does it look like? Number 2, what's the shape like? And number 3, what might it be used for? Okay, and I also want you to have a go maybe at writing a couple of things down for me on our Google conversation on the chat, so that we can actually see, I can actually see what you think about these beakers and the different designs that are on them. So just some fun facts for you. Did you know the Beaker people may have introduced beer drinking into Britain? Did you know the Bronze Age in Britain lasted approximately 1,700 years? It's a very, very long time. And also they improved the existing temple of Stonehenge, which is proof that they got on well with the original inhabitants of Great Britain. Okay, so you don't need to make notes, just a few key facts, a bit of fun facts for you. Okay, so this is your task. Now, on your Google Classroom, there are Google Forms, and that is where you will be writing this down. So there will be a Google form on there for you to use. So you are going to imagine you are an archaeologist. You've been on a dig and have found a bell-shaped beaker. So I want you to use your notes and write a letter to your friend telling them what you've discovered about the beakers in the Bronze Age. And then when you finished your letter, you can draw a picture of a beaker. Now on your Google Classroom document, you will see that there is a starting point of a letter, so the introductory line, and also some keywords that you can use in order to help you to write your letter. And then when you've finished, you may be able to draw using a Google drawing program, and it will be on the Google Classroom as a link. So you'll be able to click on it and have a go at drawing your own beaker. So once you've finished your task, your purple pen activity for you to just write down, how do you think the beaker people came up with the idea to create their amazing beakers? Okay, so that is the last question of this lesson. So once you finish your letter and you've done your drawing, you can answer this question as well. I really look forward to receiving all of your work, and I really hope that you enjoy it. If you have any questions at all, please just message us on Google Classroom and I will get back to you. Okay, speak to you soon.